I'm Levi Steele, and this is the Ordinary People Podcast. All right, everyone. I want to welcome you back to another episode of the Ordinary People Podcast with me, your host, Levi. Today, I have another guest on with me, Miss Toye Garner. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is another episode that I've been excited about for a time. I asked Miss Toye on and to discuss the power of prayer and how important prayer is in the life of a Christian. And she's got an amazing testimony about prayer in her own life that she'll share with us. So, Miss Toye, I like to start every guest off with kind of asking them how they know me, know my family. So if you would just tell us about that.
Well, we met the Steele family at Mountain Gap Church. Let's see, Levi. I remember your mama coming in with, I want to say it was Jacob. I'm pretty sure it was Jacob on her hip one Sunday. Like toting, it may have been Kate. I think she had Caleb when y'all were there already.
Yeah, I believe she did.
Okay, so it was Jacob. And I remember I turned around and looked, and y'all were fairly new, and she had Jacob like this under her arm. And then you and Abby, and I thought, that woman knows how to handle kids. And because Jacob was just happy as he could be, just bouncing down through there. I mean, his head's here and his feet's hanging out back there, and here comes your mom and I. So that's how we met at church. And then I have a son that's the same age as between you and Abby. And so you and Connor kicked it off when y'all got a little bit older and became best buddies. And so that's how our relationship with the Steele family started.
Yeah, and I mean, our relationship, we're still best of friends to this day.
Yeah, that's so neat.
And I really think it is because, a lot of times they say, the friendships you have now aren't going to last forever. And I'm sure that's true with a lot of people, but we've had that connection. We've had that friendship that's one that truly will last forever. And I think part of that was us both being homeschooled for most of our lives to where we could do stuff together. We could hang out. We did our co-op school together. And
y'all were raised similarly. Y'all had your families were similar in the way we raised y'all. And Connor, of course, didn't have any brothers or sisters near his age. His sister's 13 years older than him, and or cousins. So the Steele family became Connor's brothers and sisters.
Truly, we did.
Yeah.
I know Connor's probably saw some stuff that you would only see in a family,
That may be true.
So, no, but I mean...
And vice versa.
Yes, no. I remember many a days we would spend over there jumping on the trampoline and coming up with games and playing in y'all's yard. He'd come down to the creek and play with us there and swim in the creek.
Yep.
And, it's just so cool, like, him being married now and having a child now. And it's just like, it felt like yesterday we were talking about what are we going to do when we grow up, or where will we be in 5 years, or just didn't have a care in the world, riding the golf cart down the roads, listening to music on the speaker. Because we couldn't drive.
Y'all did get into some stuff. It wasn't bad stuff. Y'all did a bunch of good stuff. I mean, I was thankful that Connor had y'all, somebody that he could have good, clean fun with, and y'all did. Like, y'all didn't need the bad stuff to have fun. Yep. Y'all knew how to have good, clean fun, and you did. And and I was just telling somebody not too long ago about Connor's relationships with the guys, and I was like, it's really, it's different than most relationships because you do start growing apart as you get older. And I know y'all don't hang out all the time like you used to, but you just, said that y'all played pickleball last night. I mean, Connor's married now and got a kid, and you're going, growing on with your life, and it's just neat that y'all maintain that. I think that's good, and I hope y'all do for a long time.
I do too, and it's one of those things where, like, that's all stuff I expected. When he got married, when he got engaged, and then when he got married, and then now having a kid, that's all stuff that I've prepared. It's like, I know we're not going to be able to hang out all the time. That's fine. But like, I still called him 2 or 3 days ago, and we talked for half an hour.
You probably talk to him more than I do, Levi.
But we can just pick up like, it's nothing awkward, it's nothing weird. We just right where we were at. I mean, we're gonna start doing this thing. It's called Rutkin. It's we're gonna start doing it at least once a week on Wednesdays, to where you walk with like a weighted vest or weighted backpack a certain distance, and it's a good time I did it with my uncle in Lawrenceville, but it's a good time to where you can like talk and fellowship, and so it'll give us time to where we can spend time together, even though we both have busy lives. So, but to your point about our friend group, I think about this so often, especially when I hang out with them. I mean, yeah, we got our issues, but I'm so grateful for the friend group that we had, because I look around at other friend groups, high school friend groups, whatever, even adult friend groups, and there's not always the best crowds there.
Yep, you're right. You're right.
And there are so many people that have not been as fortunate as us to have the group we've had.
That's right.
But, at Mountain Gap growing up, like, we were all around that same age. Like, our graduating group was probably one of the...
huge.
Yeah.
The biggest one that we've had since I've been at Mountain Gap. But all y'all have the guys especially have such a neat relationship. Just, it's one of those where I know if one of them called you up, you'd have their back, and if one of them called Connor up, Connor would have their back, and it's not just about that, but I know that y'all encourage each other in the Lord, and you don't mind calling the other one out if you see something that they might need to check their heart on. So that's just, I've always been very thankful for that. That was a blessing, because Connor was our late in life baby.
Yeah. Yeah, I really think, too, like, I will never understand that level of appreciation for it until I'm a parent myself, of how good of a friend group something like this has been, till I'm a parent myself,
Yeah.
And I know that's your prayer for his son Koa now, is that he finds people like that, even when he's our age and growing up.
Yep.
So.
Yep, it is. I mean, that's important, and I think all parents should pray for their kids' friends. Pray for your the friends that are going to have impressions on your children. And like I said, I couldn't have prayed for a better group of friends for Connor than what he's got.
So, let's kind of dive into your childhood, you growing up. So tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, I was born in 1900. No, I'm just kidding. I was born in, I listened to Chloe and Truett today. They said, Nana, you're old. So I was born in Macon, Bibb County, to Philip and Betty Hanson. We lived there until I was 4. And then my grandparents had land up here in Pike County. And so my parents built a house up here, and we moved here when I was between 4 and 5. Went to school through Pike County my whole life. I have a younger sister, and grandparents lived on the land close to us. So just always been out here. Just grew up out here. Always went to Pike County School, rode the school bus, played out here. I remember I had cousins who lived in subdivisions and like Warner Robins and stuff like that. And I remember growing up, I would think, when we would go visit them, I would think, I wish we lived in a subdivision. Because they would always go out and meet in the street and ride their bicycles and stuff like that. But out here in Pike County, if you wanted to go and play with a friend from school, you had to make a play date. You had to, time it and meet them and all this stuff. And it wasn't something you just do every day. It was a Saturday only kind of play date. But yeah, so, but I had a good family, good mom, good dad. I said that growing up, I never heard my parents argue. They never argued in front of us, like, ever. They didn't have difficult conversations in front of us, like money problems or anything like that. My mom was the one who made sure that we had church experience, took us to church. My dad did not go to church. I remember being a little bit jealous of him on Sunday mornings because we'd be going out the door to church and he would be watching The Lone Ranger or Gilligan's Island or something. And I would be like, I just want to stay home with Daddy. And Mama would be like, no, no. And so, and Daddy would even say, no, y'all are going to church. Even though he didn't go, he was going to make sure we went with her. But she's the one who made sure that we had our involvement with church and, getting to know the Lord and stuff. So, but grew up, graduated from Pike County High School. I actually got married before I got out of high school. I got married.
So take us there.
I got married my senior year. Met Robbie, my husband, and it was crazy. I've always been, I was very much a shy person. Did not have an enormous amount of friends. I was, a little group, and that was it. And didn't like to be in the spotlight. Didn't want to be any attention brought to me whatsoever. And so I know a lot of girls as they're growing up dream about getting married and things like that. But I think I didn't dream about getting married. I didn't have wedding plans. I didn't have any of that. I think I was more afraid of not meeting somebody because of how shy I was. Like when Levi went, you probably wouldn't believe it, but when I'm telling you I was shy, I was extremely shy. And so Robbie and I, we met, and I was not a partier. I didn't party. I didn't go out and, do things. I had some friends who did, but I was never into that. I always knew I didn't want to disappoint my parents, but I didn't want to disappoint God. Like I've always had this knowledge that God was watching me wherever I was, whatever I was doing. Even if my parents didn't know it, God was going to know it. And I've always had I would say a reverential fear, but also a respect. I didn't want to hurt his heart by doing something that I shouldn't be doing. So, Robbie and I, we met, we met, okay, back in the day, this is what you did on Friday and Saturday nights. You'd get in your car and you'd go to town. Thomaston was our closest town. And you would ride around the town with your windows down and your music blaring and meet people. And then you would go and park. Right now it is where Tractor Supply is, and down in that area, Planet Fitness.
Yeah.
That used to be the hangout parking lot.
Still is, I believe.
Is it?
I think I see a lot of high school kids.
Okay,
there.
it can't be as big as it was back in my day, because back in my day it was huge.
Really?
Yes, like everybody in Thomaston and Pike County and probably Lamar and some of Griffin people would come and hang out. And so we would just ride around. And when I turned 16, my dad bought me a car. And so I had my car, and me and a couple of friends, we'd go to Thomaston on Friday night and Saturday night. And we just ride around with our windows down and our music blaring and meet people at McDonald's. That's where we met, at McDonald's, when I was 16. Yeah.
He was just hanging out with everyone else?
He was just hanging out with his friends, driving around.
How did that interaction go since you were so shy?
Well, I had friends with me. Sometimes you get a little bolder when you got somebody with you. So, and there were some friends with him. And it was really dumb what we did. But I think it was him and two other guys, may have been three other guys, I can't remember now. But they started following us down the road as we were driving around. You just made loops. You just went downtown and came back and went through the parking lot. And they were honking and waving at us and stuff, and then they were like, pull over. So we went to McDonald's and pulled over and started talking to them. And they said, y'all want to go riding with us? And we were like, of course, back then seatbelt laws and all that stuff wasn't, enforced. And so we were like, yeah. And I was thinking, the whole time I was thinking, if my mom and dad knew this, they're going to kill me. Here I am getting in this car with this. Of course, back then, it wasn't as bad as it is today. I would not recommend anybody do that. So we got in the car with them, and they took us, we just rode with them for a little bit and got to know them. Well, the next night we went back to town, and one of my friends wasn't with me. And so we met up with them again, saw them again, met up with them, and that was when Robbie and I started talking that second night. And so we met at McDonald's in the parking lot, and that's where our relationship started. We started dating each other. He started calling me and stuff like that, and called me on the house phone because there wasn't no cell phones.
Yeah. So how long after y'all began dating did y'all actually get married?
A year. I'd like to say, I like to throw in the half because it doesn't sound quite as bad. I was 17 and a half. And so back in the day when you got married like that, a lot of people thought you were expecting, going to have a baby.
Right.
But that wasn't the case. It was just, I wasn't the type. I loved him, he loved me. And I wasn't the type to date around or anything like that. And so I laugh at and tell people, I say, it's kind of one of those, I want to, you want to? Yeah, let's get married.
Right.
And and the funny thing about it was, and this is terrible, but my sister, she found herself in a difficult situation, and she was younger than me, so she was expecting out of wedlock. And I was kind of like, Robbie and I were like, well, we love each other, and if we want to get married, there's no way they're going to tell us we can't get married because she's pregnant. And so,
wow.
And so we took advantage of the situation.
I could see him saying that.
Yeah, but it's almost 40 years later now. This coming December, we'll be married 40 years.
Well, congratulations.
So it's...
How often do you just want to whack them over the head with a 2x4?
Oh, well, it used to be quite often because I was younger and stronger, and I would think about it. But now I just look at him and just like scratch my head. I'm like, dude.
That's just how he is.
That's how he is.
Well, that's cool.
He probably wants to whack me over the head sometimes too, though.
I think in a relationship it goes both ways, probably.
Yeah, it does.
So. Well, wow. So y'all met in the McDonald's parking lot. Hey, that's an American love story right there.
Right there. That's right.
Wow.
Should make a movie, shouldn't it? I'm just
So, what were your plans or aspirations after you graduated high school? Did you have a direction you were wanting to head?
Yeah, you know what I always wanted? I always wanted to be in banking. I wanted to be because banking back then wasn't like banking now. Banking back then was 9 to 5, and Wednesdays were a half day, and Saturday was till noon. And so I was like, I want to do that. And I tried to get a job at several banks, and I even remember one lady, kept going back to her, and she said, you know what? She said, I like you. I don't have any positions to fill right now, but you're very persistent, and I like that. And so I never worked in banking.
I could see it, though.
I never worked in banking. I just wanted the banking hours, I think. So, but then I started trying to decide what to do because we were a young couple, married, no money and stuff like that. And so both of us decided to go to, back then it was called Ups and Tech. And right now I think it's called Flint River. What's it called?
Southern Crescent?
Southern Crescent, that's what it's called. It was Ups and Tech, then Flint River, now it's called Southern Crescent. So we went and got degrees from there, and my degree was in administration and office. So, and his was in electronics.
Wow. Sounds about right.
Yeah.
So where did you take that?
I got a job after I graduated. I got a job with RESA organization. That's the Regional Educational Service Agency. That was in Griffin.
Okay.
And I worked there for 6-7 years. I was the administrative assistant to the director over the job training department. And then I left the job training department and went to the main office and worked with the certification of the teachers. Every year they have to have more classes and get recertified, and so I did that. I worked in that department for a couple of years before I quit, and then I stayed at home. And then our pastor at Mountain Gap Church, I was going to Mountain Gap Church, our pastor left and a new pastor came in, and I was friends with the family, and we were talking one day, and he found out that I had worked as an administrative assistant, and we got to talking, and he asked me if I would like to work a couple of hours a week at the church, helping him with some administrative stuff. And so I said, yeah, that would be fun. And that's where that started. That's been about 24 years now.
Oh, wow.
I've been working at Mountain Gap Church. Yeah.
Oh, my. That's a long time.
I know, Levi, that's longer than you are old.
Are the benefits good?
The benefits are very good.
A long drive, too, I imagine.
It is a long drive. Don't talk about my drive to church.
Well, good. So where did Robbie go from there after he graduated?
Okay, so Robbie went and worked at the Warner Robins Air Force Base. He was on what they called a co-op thing. Like, he worked 6 months down there, and then he would go to school for 6 months. And at the end of graduation, he was supposed to go full-time on the base, the Air Force Base. But they froze all hiring at the end of his when he graduated. So he didn't actually get to go to the Air Force Base. He instead went and worked mechanical jobs. He became maintenance man in some plants and stuff like that. And he eventually landed at a company called Blake and Pendleton, and worked there for, I can't even remember how many years. Seems like it was 12, 15, but he worked his way into a part of that company called IZ Systems, and he would do a lot of traveling. He would leave out on Monday morning and be back on Friday, and that was at least 2-3 weeks out of the month. And he did that during Connor's early years. He did that for about 4 years before he was just like, I've had enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that travel's got to be hard, I imagine.
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, it affected him so much. Like on Sundays, he didn't even enjoy Sundays because he was thinking about Monday having to be at the airport to fly out, and he just hated it so much. He was, I've had enough. He quit his job at Christmas time. I remember I was standing in the kitchen cooking. I was standing at the stove, and he came up behind me and he hugged me and he said, "I think I just quit my job." And I was like, okay. And so I think he quit before he had really realized he was quitting, because they were wanting to send him to Chicago. He was supposed to book his own flight, book his own hotel, and they told him that he was going to be using a taxi. Because of where the job was at, he was going to be using a taxi to get around. Well, I mean, he's got equipment that he had to carry with him and stuff, computers and stuff like that. Because what he would do is he'd go in and he'd put systems online for them. And he was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not hauling this equipment in and out of taxis, going from job to job. And by that time, he had done, he was fed up. So when they put that request in and told him that that's what he was going to be doing, he was like, no, I'm not. And so I remember he said, I think I just quit my job. And I was like, okay. And then he said he was going out and he was going to walk around the field and just kind of walk around the field. And he came back in and he said the Lord had told him that he was going to take care of him. So that's, he's been working out of the house now since then. That was like 2016, I think. Yeah, so 10 years. Yeah, he's been self-employed for 10 years, and the Lord's carried us through.
How about that? What a blessing.
Yeah, your daddy had a lot to do with that, too.
I remember those days.
I think the first thing he worked on was a four-wheeler that, I don't know if it was your dad's or your dad knew whose it was and brought it to him. But I think one of the first items he worked on was a 4-wheeler that your dad was involved with.
I remember that. I remember that time when he was starting up his business and stuff. And wow, it's been 10 years, man.
10 years.
That's crazy how fast time flies. So can you step back a little bit and talk to me about you getting married young? Mm-hmm. And I know Connor got married young. What would your encouragement be to people thinking about getting married that are young? Would you encourage people getting married young?
I normally say no. I don't encourage people, but it also depends on the person. I mean, yourself, your personality. Some people don't have the personality that they're going to date a bunch of people, until they find the one. Some people's personality, I think, and hopefully if you've been praying for your spouse, the Lord brings, the first one is the one, the Lord brings you. I don't normally encourage it because it can be hard. I mean, I was 17. He's 3 years older than me, so he was 20. But you don't have the job skills. You're not going to make a bunch of money. And right now, especially right now, trying to rent or buy something, it's so expensive. But you do get to grow up together, and it's just be prepared if you do find yourself in love with somebody and you want to get married at that age. Like I said, Connor was young, but he was not quite as young as I was. But Connor has a personality, and we talked, and I just knew, he's got his head on right. He knows what he wants. If there's any doubt, don't do it. But it's challenging, but marriage is challenging no matter what age you get married at, And I remember Robbie always, when we got married, he said, "You will never hear the word divorce from me." And I have never heard him say, "I want a divorce." I can't say that because I've said that to him, but I can definitely say that he's never told me that. Yep. So.
Well, let's take a quick break, and then we'll get into talking about that a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, so we're back from the break, and I just kind of want to talk about what you were saying with divorce. And you said you had never heard that come out of Robbie's mouth, but you couldn't say that for yourself. Tell me a little bit about that. Why was that?
You know what? I think it was more an empty threat. To try to make him straighten up or do better, make him maybe be afraid that I would do that, because I didn't come from a divorced family. I don't even know that I knew anybody who was divorced. My aunts and uncles, all of them were still. I had one uncle that had divorced, but everybody else was still married to whoever they married, So I really think it was more me just trying to put pressure on him to do better.
Will you talk about him straightening up? What was going on? Like, what was...
Robbie was not... Robbie grew up in a family that showed very little emotion. And honestly, not much support for each other. He had a pretty rough childhood, growing up years. When he was younger, his dad drank a lot. He was from the military, came out of the Marines, and I think it affected the whole family. Robbie was a middle child. I'm sure that he probably wasn't innocent in everything growing up, but his parents did not treat Robbie like my parents treated us. I had a really good childhood. My parents were some of the best parents you could have asked for. They supported us. They loved us. Like, we didn't go anywhere without saying bye, I love you, or good night, I love you. It was just, we showed a lot of emotion. And Robbie did not do that. And he didn't learn how as he was growing up. And so, therefore, as he got older, and he's still not a very emotional person. Like he doesn't show his emotions, and sometimes he would act like he didn't have feelings about certain things. And so that was hard for me because I came from a family who showed emotions and showed their feelings and shared them with each other. And so that was hard. And Robbie got into a group of guys. He was very much a guy's guy. He liked to hunt and he liked to do fish. And when we were younger, before Chelsea came along, there was a lot of times where I felt like he didn't care about my feelings, and he would take off and go to the hunt club. He would say, we're going hunting, stay overnight. I'm going with my guy friends. I don't care. Your parents live across the road. You can go, you can go stay with them. And so there was a lot of selfish things that he did, not bad things, like he didn't drink or party or cut up or anything like that. It was just, I thought that he was selfish, and that was something that I didn't have experience with growing up. I was more, my family always cared about each other. We thought about each other and how things would affect each other, and tried not to do stuff that would cause the other one pain. But with Robbie when he was young, and of course I think it had a lot to do with his family growing up, because he didn't get to do a lot. They didn't have a lot. And so I think when he finally was grown and married and out on his own, that he really took it. I'm my own man, and he had said that before to me. And so that was some of the things that would make me be like, okay, well, we'll just divorce. If you want to be your own man, you shouldn't have married me. But it was never anything bad. Like, Robbie's never been abusive, or he's never been verbally abusive, physically abusive to me, or anything like that.
Just selfishness.
Yeah.
So you just kind of moving into prayer now. He wasn't a Christian, from my understanding.
No.
When y'all married.
Yeah.
So tell me about that, and then go into you praying for him.
Well, he had been to church as a kid. Of course, what most of us have. Most people go to church when they're a kid at some point in their life. But he was not in church or following the Lord when we met. Of course, neither was I. I had stepped away from the church during my teenage years, just because I guess my mom let us, start making that decision. And so I had stepped away from the church for a while. But I knew that I still had a deep understanding of who God was. I've always had that reverence of who he is and who he was in my life, but Robbie didn't. And so, no, he wasn't following the Lord, and I would pray, but again, like I said, I wasn't in church either. I wasn't serving the Lord like I should have been, but I would pray, and probably about, probably around the time Chelsea was born, I really started feeling the Lord nudge me to get back into church. And I needed that community. And I just wouldn't do it because Robbie wasn't doing it. And so the Lord kept nudging me. And I think my mom had started going back to Mountain Gap off and on. And the Lord was nudging me, and I wouldn't do it. And we were in Florida at Walt Disney World, and Chelsea was 2. And we were down there with cousins and family and stuff. And one of the days down there, out of nowhere, I had a major panic attack, like full blown. Did not even know what panic attacks were. Thought I was losing my mind. I ended up at the emergency room and everything, and I couldn't figure anything out. My mom knew that it was a panic attack. She knew that it was anxiety and stuff like that, just because of the crowd and everything. And so during that time, of course, at the emergency room, they say, you having a panic attack and there's nothing physically wrong with me. Well, I wanted there to be something physically wrong with me so at least I could get some medicine to help fix it. And my mother, she told me, she said, the Lord can take care of this. The Lord can, heal this in you. And so at Walt Disney World in the resort, I pulled out the Gideon Bible that was in the nightstand, and the rest of the trip, that's what I did. I read the Bible, stayed in the Bible. I started pulling scriptures that talked about fear and anxiety and everything, and I just started really, well, when we got back home, I couldn't wait to get into the church because I knew what I needed was the Lord. I knew I needed the Lord to help with that fear and that anxiety and that lack of peace. And so I started going back to the church. Well, I was being prayed for, and the Lord started walking me through and healing me. And then I started working at the church. Well, then I started noticing all the couples at church. And every time there was a special event at the church, I would ask Robbie to go, and he wouldn't go. He'd be like, no. And I would feel like, all these couples are going to be there, these families, and here it's going to be me and Chelsea walking in. And, you could at least go with us. It's just, he wouldn't even go Easter. It was like, no Easter, no Christmas, no nothing. He didn't want to do any of it. And so I really started praying for him and just asking the Lord to work in his heart. And I was like, Lord, save him. But at the same time, and this is going to sound crazy, I was praying for him, but not for the right reason. You remember I said that I saw the couples and the families? Well, I wanted that, to me, that was an image that I wanted.
The complete family.
I wanted him at church, but I didn't want him at church for the right reason. I wanted him there, honestly, for looks. You know what I'm saying? It's weird.
Yeah.
But the Lord revealed that to me because we had one Saturday morning we were going to Waffle House, and we had gotten into an argument before we left. Now, this is all the time I've been praying for him to start a church. And we had gotten into an argument before we left. But when we go out to get in the car, I look at Chelsea and I'm like, you can sit in the front with your dad because I'm not sitting up there. I climbed in the back seat and we headed out the driveway to go to the Waffle House. And I remember I was praying and I was mad and upset because Robbie was the type that once he got upset, he'd said his piece and he'd stop. That's it. No more talking. Don't care what you got to say, nothing else. And I was the type that I want us finish this. Well, we were driving down the road and I remember I was saying, Lord, get him. Get him. I was so mad and in my head I'm thinking, I didn't want Lord to strike him dead or anything, but I was like, just show him how wrong he is. Lord, show him how wrong he is. And the Holy Spirit said, I'm going to get him, but not like how you want me to get him. And I remember it was so plain, and I stopped and I started crying and I said, you know what, Lord, you're right. You're right. Because I had been praying for Robbie to come to the Lord, but it wasn't for Robbie to come to the Lord. It was my own selfish reasons. I thought if he came to the Lord, he would be a better person and our family would look good. I wasn't even thinking about Robbie's salvation and in an eternal sense, But the Holy Spirit said, I am going to get him. And so that helped me change how I prayed. So there was a lot of stuff in me that had to change, even though I was praying for him, for the Lord to save him, and change him. There was a lot of stuff during those 16, 17 years that the Lord showed me that I had to change.
So what was his come to Jesus moment?
His come to Jesus moment was, it actually didn't happen until after my mom died. My dad died, and then 10 years later, my mom died. And Robbie was really close to both of them. So he always said that they treated him, they were more parents to him than his own parents were. Like I said, it's hard when, we were such an emotional family and we shared our feelings. When my mom died and he was there with her during some of the hard days, there was one particular night we were at the hospital, and I thought that she was passing away that night, and I kept telling her that it wasn't time. And she looked at Robbie and she told Robbie, she said, "You got to tell her to let me go. She has to let me go." And he was telling her, he's like, yeah, Betty, I'll tell her, it's okay, I'll tell her. And I just kept saying, "No, Mama, it's not time." Well, at that particular night, she was having trouble breathing, and in that moment, she went to lay back, and she appeared to be leaving. She appeared to be dying at that moment. Her eyes kind of rolled and closed, and her breath was getting shallow, and I mashed the button for the nurse to come in. Well, the nurse comes in, and she's like, she looks at me and asks me if she had a DNR or something, and I said no. And so she's like, Miss Hanson, what's going on? What's going on? And all of a sudden, Mama's breath came back into her body. It was like she took this huge gasp, and she sits up and she looks at us and she says, "He wouldn't even let me see the gates. He told me it's not time." And Robbie was in the room when she said that. And Robbie knew that my mama wasn't one who made stuff up, or exaggerated or anything like that. And so I think that had something to do with it. But Robbie's come to Jesus was very slow and gradual. He's very much into music, and him and Chelsea started singing. I noticed that whenever we would get in the car and go somewhere, they would turn it on Christian music, and him and Chelsea would sing together. Well, then it got to where I would notice that if I ever got into his truck to go somewhere with him, that it was no longer on a country station or anything. It was on a Christian station. And so that let me know that he's listening to Christian music even when he doesn't have to, And so he started listening to Christian music and started singing with Chelsea. And like when Mama died, I think it just opened up the reality that death is real. People you love, they do die, and there is an eternity that you need to come to grips with and realize that we're not promised tomorrow. And he realized that he needed something different. He needed the Lord, and so he started out going to. I remember the first day he got up and he got dressed. It was a Sunday, and I was like, "Wonder where he's going so early," because he hadn't told me he was going to church. And I remember thinking, "What is he doing?" Because Robbie will tell you he's a man of few words. Sometimes you just got to watch him and see what he's going to do. And he said, of course, church is right across the street, and so he didn't have far to go. And I noticed he went to church. And I was like, okay. Well, then I was on edge for weeks. You're like, okay, he went last week without me asking him. So the next Sunday, he gets up and he starts getting dressed again. And I was like, is he going back? And so, sure enough, he went to church. And it was like that. And I remember I would think every Saturday, I'd be like, is he going to go to church tomorrow? I didn't want to ask him. That's the funny thing about it. The whole time that we were married, the Lord did not really release me to preach to Robbie or to say anything about, him, or only on a few occasions did I actually get to talk to him. I remember there was one time when I was asking him about tithing because he was working and I was not. And I said, I feel like we need to tithe. And he said, well, you do what you need to do. It wasn't a yes and it wasn't a no. And so, anyways, but so Robbie's, he hasn't been a hard person. He was just distant from the Lord. And so when he started going to church every Sunday, I was still like, because like I said, he's a man of few words. So every Saturday, I'm like, is he going to church? Do I ask him, is he going to church? Maybe not. I'll just wait and see. So on Sunday mornings, I'm like holding my breath, waiting to see if he's going to get up and go to church. And now, to this day, he beats me to church. He's there before I am. So, but I think music had a lot to do with it. I think seeing my mom go through what she went through had a lot to do with it. And a lot of prayers. There was a lot of prayers. I have a prayer journal now where I taught the girls' class, and Chelsea wrote every week in our prayer journal, salvation for my daddy. And I have that. And that was when she was young, 12 years old. She wrote in it every single Wednesday night, salvation for my daddy. And so the Lord answered prayers.
He finally answered the prayer.
Yep.
Can you talk to me about just being patient in your prayers? Because oftentimes when we pray something, we expect or want whatever it is on the end of that prayer to happen instantly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do. But when I think if the Lord answered everything like that instantly, we wouldn't trust Him, and our faith wouldn't build like it needs to. It would just be a temporary fix. But there were times, He would do something or say something, and I would be like, oh my goodness, Lord, are you ever going to, answer this prayer? When are you going to change and change Him, work in Him? And like I said earlier, there's a lot that the Lord had to work out in me too. There was a time when I was going to fast, but I didn't know what I was going to fast. And the Holy Spirit spoke to me and told me that there was an attitude that I had toward Robbie that I needed to fast. So I did. And I mean, it could be, it was something as simple as, being snappy with him or something like that. It was just an attitude that I had. And so I did. I fasted that attitude, and I started to see changes. Well, the changes weren't in Robbie. They were in me, because I needed to get rid of that attitude. I didn't need to treat him like that. And so I did. And the Lord worked in that. But there were definitely times when it was hard to be patient, waiting on the Lord to work, because I just, we do want instant gratification, and I thought, well, if He'd get right, then everything would be right with our family. But it has to be in the Lord's timing, because if it's not in the Lord's timing, then it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah. How important is it for everyone who is a Christian to have a prayer life and not just, Lord, thank you for this meal? Because oftentimes, I guess, lukewarm Christians, they just pray, Lord, thank you for my meal, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But how important is a true prayer life on your knees daily before the Lord?
Well, I mean, the question is, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? To get to know the Lord, you have to talk to Him. You have to spend time with Him. It's the same as anybody that you have a relationship with. In order to know them better, you spend time with them. And prayer is one of the greatest gifts that He's given us. And there's been He's just answered so many of my prayers, and some of them have been long, drawn-out prayers, that went on like with Robbie for years. And then some have been just prayers I've prayed going down the road, like, Lord, I sure would like, this to happen, and it happens. you know? So he cares about every detail of our life. And most of the time he's just waiting on us to ask him and talk to him about it. And I find joy in talking to the Lord and praying, and because it gives my heart an opportunity to connect with His heart when I pray. And I just think if you're a Christian, why aren't you praying? You know. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Prayer is, yeah, I mean, it's something I've often struggled with is making the time, because a lot of times I'll go lay in that bed at night and begin to pray, and I end up falling asleep. And so it's just being intentional about making the time to do it, being intentional about
There's
praying.
no secret formula, and I don't think you have to design some kind of formula, you know, to pray.
And it doesn't have to be complicated either.
No, it
A
doesn't.
lot of people think, one thing that bothers me is when we're in a group of, whether it's a young adults meeting or just a gathering, and somebody's like, "Who wants to pray?" and nobody's speaking up, and they're like all shy and want to pray. That bothers me, because I'm like, He's the creator. He created you and me, this universe. Why wouldn't you want to pray? It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Just talk to him like it's a conversation.
Yeah. I think we have to give people grace in that area, because there are people who have different personalities, and they're just not going to do that,
And
you know.
see, that's tough for me, because I'm
You're
very
like,
much an
I'll pray.
extrovert. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to give people grace in that area, just because I've thought the same thing. I've thought, "Oh my goodness, everybody here's got something they could pray about," you know? But some people just don't like doing it praying in public, and
Yeah.
you know, that's okay. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't have to be any kind of elaborate prayer, and it doesn't have to be, I'm going to get up at 4 o'clock every morning and pray. Now, if that works for you and you feel the Holy Spirit telling you to do that, then you most definitely need to do it. But I think sometimes we make it so difficult that, especially new Christians, they're like, I can't do that, you know? I can't get up at 4 o'clock. I got to get up at 6 o'clock already to go to work. But, and I don't think the Bible does say to pray without ceasing, but you can do that walking to your car. You can say a prayer, you know. It's just like I went to the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through, and the Lord answered another prayer that I had been praying about letting me see people the way He sees people. And so the person at the window was not someone what I was expecting to see. And so the Lord let me see this person exactly how He saw them. And as I was leaving, I just started praying for the person, you know? And it's just, that wasn't a timed prayer or anything. And I just, I just talked to the Lord about it, you know? I was like, Lord, you see that person? You know what's going on in that person's life? You know, reveal truth to them. You know, draw their heart to you. I didn't go get on my knees somewhere or in, you know, there are times for that, but I think God enjoys us treating Him like a father, you know, and just talk to Him like you would talk to your dad.
There's this one thing that my dad has always told me that's kind of stuck with me, is when you tell somebody you're going to pray for them, stop what you're doing and do it then.
Yeah.
And be, a lot of times, whether it's over text or to their face, and they tell you something's gone on in their family, this person's dying, or this person's passed away, or they have cancer. You're like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I'll be praying for you. But then you say that, and then you go about your day, and you end up forgetting about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when you say you're going to do something like that, you say you're going to pray. Take that time, stop what you're doing, no matter what it is, and
Yeah.
pray for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's the cool thing about the text thread that the church has, is, and I've talked about this in a previous episode, is that every time that text goes out, whether it's somebody the people on the other end know or don't know at all, it's, somebody's cousin or whatever, or brother, or anything. People stop what they're doing in the middle of their workday and they pray for that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's so important, because oftentimes we're human. We'll forget.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. I'm guilty of that myself, and I've tried to do more of, instead of saying I'm going to pray for somebody, just actually stop and pray for them. Because if you do that and you notice their face, it's like the Lord lifts a small piece of a burden off of them when you pray right there in the end for them. And so, and He does, especially if it's somebody of faith, even if it's not somebody of faith. I remember one time, going out on an evangelism. We did evangelism outreach, and I had some teenagers with me, and we went to this person's house. And I remember when we was leaving, I asked him if I could pray for him, and he told me no. And so he kind of stepped back, and we get in the car, and I told the teenagers, I was like, well, he don't know we're gonna pray for him anyways, Right. We prayed for him in the car, and then it was probably a year or so later, he walks into the church. The guy walks into the church. And so I was like, of course, I don't know where the teenagers were then, but I remembered him, and I was like, yeah, I told you. You didn't have to give me permission to pray for you. I'm going to pray for you anyways. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Miss Toye, I want to thank you for joining me today on this episode. It's been a wonderful conversation just about your life and, your prayer life and your story with you and your husband. And so thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Levi. I love you.
Yeah, I love you too. And Miss Toye, I'll tell y'all, she's told you that me and Connor grew up together. She's been like a second mother to me. We'd go over there and swim in the pool and eat popsicles and probably get sticky popsicle juice everywhere. And so Miss Toye's a special woman in my life, and I'm so grateful that you took the time to do this.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And maybe next time we'll have you and Robbie on together.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, he's a man of few words.
Yeah. I think I could get him talking about
You probably
things.
could. Have something with electronics or mechanical asking questions.
Maybe just have him on there.
Yeah,
And then
he
so
can tell you how to fix something.
Yeah, right. So moving forward, who are a few people that you would be interested in seeing on the podcast?
Who is somebody I'd be interested in seeing on the podcast? I think your mom should do it. Have you done your mom?
No, I have not.
I think you should. That woman is full of wisdom. I mean, seriously, she's raised 4 kids. Raising the last, Jacob's pretty much almost there. She's done a good job with y'all.
She left the hardest one for the last one. No, I'm kidding. I'm probably going to get in trouble.
Start working on your questions.
Probably going to get in trouble for saying that one.
Start working on your questions. No, your mom.
Yeah. Okay, my mom and who else would you like to see? That's not necessarily related.
Not related. Mike Rowe.
You've seen the videos.
I've seen the videos.
Yep. We're working hard on that.
Mike Rowe.
Well, I'll tell you a funny thing about that. My grandfather, he texted me yesterday, and he said, "Just want to let you know, I reached out to Mike, and he said he'll do it. He said he'll have his people reach out to your people." I was like,
your people.
He asked me this morning. He said, "Did he call you yet? Did he reach out yet?" I said, "No, I haven't heard it." He's like, "I'll get on him about it."
Yeah.
So.
Oh my goodness.
So Mike Rowe, and then give me one more.
Give you one more. I think it would be neat to interview. Somebody from the older generation and somebody from the younger generation.
Okay.
With similar questions.
Okay.
And see how different the answers are.
Okay. So younger generation, what are we talking now?
Yours. Okay. You're an adult. Your age, somebody who's doing life, and then somebody from an older generation.
Oh.
And just ask the same kind of questions.
I like that, and just have them sit side by side.
Yeah.
Okay.
and kind of see how different the answers are.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's an excellent idea. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll make it happen then.
You can do it.
All right. Well, Miss Toye, again, thank you so much for being
You're
here.
welcome.
This
You're
has
welcome.
been a special time. And you're a professional now.
I'm a professional.
You're a professional podcaster. That's all it takes. That's the criteria you got to meet. One podcast
Levi.
and you're done.
Thank you, Levi. You
You're
did
welcome.
it. You get all the credit.
Thank you so much, Miss Toye.